Hello everyone, my name is Kirsten and I work for the Civil Aviation Authority. And I'm really excited to be talking to you today about aviation careers. And the reason I'm so excited about that is I've been in aviation all my working life, over 30 years now, and it's been an absolutely fascinating journey. I've gone through various sectors in the industry. And in fact, you'll find that most people who end up in the aviation industry don't leave it because it is just so exciting. The sky really is the limit. There's so many fascinating jobs within this sector, beyond the ones that everybody initially thinks about. If you have an interest in aviation or aerospace, then please pursue it. Do some research, ask questions, work hard, and take some risks. Don't forget that an exciting career is worth your effort, and it is within your own power to achieve. So what I'm going to try to do in this short presentation today is to outline not only some of the traditional roles that are in aviation and some that you may or may not be aware of, but also where I think aviation will be going in the next 5 to 10 years' time, and that if I was starting out, I'd be really excited to get involved in. So first of all, I work for the Civil Aviation Authority, and you may say, oops, let me stop that. You may say to yourself, what is the Civil Aviation Authority? And if you haven't heard about us, then actually that's a good thing because it means that we're doing our jobs. So we are the UK's aviation regulator in the same way that, for example, the Health and Safety Executive regulates health and safety, we regulate civil aviation. So non-military aviation. We make sure that passengers, but also people who don't fly, are kept safe and secure from the impacts from aviation. So we regulate pilot licenses, pilot training, airlines, maintenance, design, airports. We also do work to protect passengers when flights are cancelled or airlines go bankrupt. And also, starting from the summer, we will be regulating spaceflight in the UK, which is a really exciting area to be getting into. Now, just like any business, if we're going to be an effective regulator in the future, we really need skilled and enthusiastic people to come work for us in the CAA, but we also need the industry to be staffed by skills and experienced people and enthusiastic people to keep it safe and secure. I won't play this video that's on the screen now, but it'll be available for you to have a little look at later to learn more about what the CAA does. So some of these roles here are the ones that you may think of are the more traditional roles within aviation that a lot of people will be aware of in some part. Now, obviously, you'll have heard in the news recently that the pandemic has seriously affected the aviation industry. And in fact, most estimates think that it won't be until about 2024 that the industry recovers to the same levels it was at in 2019. But that doesn't mean that there will then no longer be a need for these roles. By the time that happens, a lot of people will have left the industry. The retirement profile for some of these jobs, especially in engineering and air traffic control, is very high. And the industry has been warning that there will be an ongoing need for those jobs and for people to train for those roles. So, for example, in engineering, and engineering encompasses a very wide field. You have the field of aerodynamics, which is how things fly and how the airflow, how best to create lift, how to have as little drag as possible so that you can have machines that fly with as little thrust as possible. Propulsion is how you develop the thrust. So whether you have a jet engine or a propeller engine or electrical engines or engines powered by solar, that is the propulsion area of engineering. Then you have the whole area of manufacturing, which of course, as you know, has to be done to very, very strict standards with all kinds of non-destructive testing to make sure that the materials are strong enough. Materials and structures, encompasses things like, are you going to use composite materials for the frame or other materials? How strong are they? How light are they? Will they withstand all the stresses of aircraft taking off and landing all the time? Avionics are the electronics that are in the cockpit and that make that power the aircraft, which is of course becoming more and more complex as there's more advancement in electrical systems. And then systems integration is exactly that. How do you, within an aircraft, integrate all the various systems that make it work as they get more and more technical and more complex, so that if one goes out, it doesn't affect the other one, and there's various redundancies built in. And then spectrum and 5G is a relatively new field. There is only a finite amount of spectrum in the universe, and the aviation industry has to share this spectrum with the mobile and telecoms industry, with television, and various other things. So how do we make the best use of spectrum and share the limited spectrum that we have very wisely? So those are some examples of engineering jobs that will be required now and in the future. On the flying, obviously, those are pretty obvious, the different types of flying careers. And in maintenance, then once everything has been manufactured and produced, all these aircraft have scheduled maintenance processes and regimes. So you actually have licensed and technicians. Those are people who don't necessarily have a higher level degree, but are licensed to do certain roles. And then you have airworthiness engineers as well. And then in the operations area, there's a whole suite of different jobs that a lot of people may not even realize exist out there. So in addition to those from cabin crew and air traffic control, which are probably the more visible ones, there's a lot of roles within airport operations to keep the airport safe, to make sure that all the lightings and all the systems are operating correctly. There's flight planning that looks at planning the best routes for the aircraft based on other traffic and weather. A whole host of customer service roles, and in fact those are a lot of entry-level roles into the industry that people take and move on from there. The same with ground handling, loading and unloading and cargo handling. And then you have more specialist roles like rescue and firefighting, for example, on the airfield. And there's even roles like wildlife management. You may all recall the incident of the aircraft landing on the Hudson because of hitting a flock of geese. So birds and other animals tend to like airports because they're big open spaces, and there's roles necessary to control those. Now I've included a little table there of just example of numbers of people that were employed in various roles as well as their salary. Now that was before the pandemic, but it gives you a relative indication. So now what will be needed in the future? And this is where I think it gets really exciting. So as the industry recovers from the pandemic, they will be looking more and more to technology, artificial intelligence, and those types of things to recover and make the industry better. But one of the very, very big priorities that the industry and the government has is greening the sector. So as you know, the whole issue of climate change is front and center in the whole world, and certainly in this government and various other governments' agendas. And the industry, although it may not be the biggest carbon polluter that's there, certainly realizes that it needs to do more to be more sustainable. So there's an awful lot of work that's going on, and a lot of grants to do things, for example, creating biofuels. And with biofuels, it's not just about creating a fuel. You then need to ensure that the aircraft can be either the systems can be amended, or you need to design new aircraft that can actually use that fuel to operate. You also have things such as solar aircraft, as you can see in the photo there. And there are also some electrical flights that are happening. So the roles available in sort of making the industry greener will be significant, and there'll be significant investment in that area in the future. And I think it's really exciting to make it, we all want to see aviation continue because it's a really a major way for us to connect with family, with friends, to do business. But how can we do that so we don't hurt the planet, and all can feel good about doing it? The other areas that are really coming up in the future are with UAVs and drones and uncrewed or remotely piloted aircraft, as you can see in some of the photos there. So already, as you know, drones are being used to deliver vital medicines. They're being used by companies like Amazon in trials to deliver packages. Now, first of all, the drones need to be able to fly safely and not crash into things, not crash into houses or drop packages on people. But also, as these drones are making their way in the sky, we need to be able to have ways of separating them from other air traffic that's out there. And then from the drones, the systems will be moving more to what we call remotely piloted aircraft. So those are aircraft that don't have a pilot actually inside them, but the pilot is remote on the ground. Probably in the future, we might be looking to one pilot piloting more than one remotely piloted aircraft. And then in the more longer term future, we might look at uncrewed automated aircraft altogether. Now, obviously, there's an awful lot that needs to be developed for that to be able to happen safely, but that work has already started, and rules are already being written to sort of formulate what that would look like and how these different aircraft would, quote unquote, see and avoid each other. And part of that of those systems, and part of the technology that will be very important, is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So those are other really big, exciting areas to get involved in the industry. And for example, on the last photo that you see there, holograms being used to help maintenance engineers fix problems, so that you have actually, instead of having to look at a manual, you have a holograph there that will guide you through the maintenance processes. And one of the areas that I personally find very fascinating, and in fact, even in my 50s, I've just completed a Master's of Science degree in a field called Human Factors and Human Performance. And this is where you look at both a little bit of the psychology of humans and how humans best interact with all this technology and all this machinery. The human is a strong problem solver and thinker and creative force, and then machines are best to do certain precision things. And how do we make sure that we get the best out of both of those, and sort of marry the concepts correctly? Because we've all seen that if technology is not designed with the operator in mind, then you could come into some difficulties when it becomes to be operated. So those, I think, are some really exciting areas for you to think about and do some research about, and which will be much needed in the industry in the future. And just as some examples, these are some news reports that were in the news just last week that shows where, and the links should work so you can have a look at them, where they're looking at creating sustainable aviation fuels in Cheshire, which is also funded by government grants, and they're looking to create a lot of jobs there in the future. The bottom one is obviously doesn't apply to you right now, but it does show that also in the UK there's a very big push to develop our UK space industry now, and they are looking to recruit people from all different diverse backgrounds. Because one thing to say is that traditionally this industry has been not very diverse in its makeup, and we really believe that for the industry to be at its best, we need to recruit from from the best people and from the widest possible people, and the best ideas and the best skills come from people with varying and diverse backgrounds, so that you get a really nice meld of ideas and thoughts. So we're really looking to welcome people from more diverse backgrounds into the industry. Now, finally, just a few thoughts for you to consider as to different pathways into the sector. So there's the traditional routes of higher education and engineering and math and sciences. And for most of those jobs that I've outlined to you today, then of course the sort of STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math, are quite key. There's also quite a lot of apprenticeships available. For example, the CAA has various apprentices. I know British Airways and Rolls-Royce also have apprentice programs. And this is the link here is a little podcast from the Royal Aeronautical Society, where there's an engineer talking about her route of apprenticeship into the sectors. The other thing is, you know, there's other things like the cadets and various other extracurricular activities, but also don't forget that, and this is one of the key messages that I really want to leave you with, is that it's not, you don't have to make all your final decisions about your future right now. Although I always wanted to be in the industry, my career in the industry has followed various pathways. And just by opportunities that would come up, I would think to myself, actually, I'll do that, instead of, ooh, I don't know why I would do that. And as a result, I've had jobs that I never even knew existed when I first started out. So don't be afraid to take some lateral moves and try things out. As long as you apply yourself each time in each position or each role, then people will go, oh yeah, oh, that person's a pretty good person to have on our team. So I would say, you know, don't stress too much. Figure out the types of things that excite you now and that you want to learn, and then follow your career as different paths approach. And that's what that last picture there is meant to represent. Finally, there's a few links there that will help you to find out a bit more about careers in aviation, about the Civil Aviation Authority. I've included the NASA website there because they have an excellent website with some really cool stuff on it for you to look at. So I hope this has at least piqued your interest in aviation careers, and it encourages you to do a little bit more to find out where you can get more information. And really, I hope to see you in the future, either in the industry or in the Civil Aviation Authority, hopefully leading one of these big organizations. That would be really great. Bye.